Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm your host, Steve Lance. Could some of the 21 lives lost in the Texas shooting have been saved? Officials' accounts of police response are fueling questions, while more are demanding answers. NTD's Iris Tao brings us more.
At 12:47, she asked 911 to please send the police now. At 12:46,
breaking down while reading 911 calls made from inside the Uvalde school where 21 were killed, the director of the Texas Department of Public Safety said the police were wrong not to breach the classrooms sooner.
it was a wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that. You can't. Hey, when there's an active shooter, the rules change. It's no longer, okay? It's no longer a barricaded subject. We don't have time.
Authorities said Friday that about 20 officers waited in the hallway outside the classrooms for more than 45 minutes before breaking in and confronting the gunman.
The on-scene commander considered it a barricaded subject and that there was time and there were no more children at risk.
And here's Texas Governor Greg Abbott speaking at a Friday press conference.
Why did they not choose the strategy that would have been best to get in there and to eliminate the killer and to rescue the children?
Abbott, who earlier this week praised police for their quick response to the shooting, said he was misled by incorrect information given by law enforcement.
I was misled. I am livid about what happened. The families whose lives have been destroyed, they need answers that are accurate.
Texas Congressman Joaquin Castro has requested a full FBI investigation into the timeline of events, citing what he calls conflicting accounts by officials and witnesses about how police responded at the scene. The calls for intervention comes as President Biden is visiting Uvalde this Sunday. The White House said he will grieve with the families while calling on Congress to take action. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
The annual NRA convention is starting today in Houston. This comes in the wake of today's shooting. As a Texas community continues to sort out the truth about the deaths of 19 children and 2 adults, the NRA has decided to go forward with its annual convention in Houston for the first time in 3 years. Key speakers include former President Donald Trump and Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
I want to ask for a brief moment of silence as I read the names of these beautiful people. Alexandria Rubio, Alitha Ramirez. Every time a disturbed or demented person commits such a hideous crime, there's always a grotesque effort by some in our society to use the suffering of others to advance their own extreme political agenda.
While several protesters gathered outside the convention, with some shouting that the Second Amendment was written in 1791 and that this is now 2022. Mark Meckler, a constitutional expert, explains why the Founding Fathers see it important for the people to be armed.
In that they lived under a government that became tyrannical, that stripped them of their weapons and ammunition, and then imposed that tyranny by literally quartering forces in their homes. So they understood that ultimately tyranny might need to be resisted at the point of a weapon and that the people should be armed and trained.
Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner earlier this week said that the city was contractually obligated to let the convention move forward. Some key Republicans have pulled out of this forum as political pressure continues to mount, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and Texas Senator John Cornyn, and several other high-profile names. And with Second Amendment politics swirling, our next guest is Eric Pratt, Senior Vice President of Gun Owners of America, and we're happy to have him on to discuss. Eric Pratt, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Absolutely. Eric, it didn't take long for the politicization of this shooting to kick in. Why do you think that is?
Well, obviously the left is all about pushing gun control. And so with this, it's absolutely disgusting what they're doing. I mean, they're pushing gun control. They're fundraising off of this within hours of the shooting. And really, it's despicable because it becomes clear they only care about certain deaths. For example, more than 40 people have been shot and killed in Chicago this month. In the last 30 days in Baltimore, there have been 20 people shot and killed. But the left is not talking about that. They're not fundraising off of Chicago or Baltimore because they already have very strict gun control. Those cities don't serve their cause. They have red flag gun confiscation orders. They have universal background registration checks. They have so-called assault weapons bans. They have everything that the left is trying to push on us, and yet they have murders out the wazoo in those two cities that they can't control it. And what that tells us, obviously, is that gun control is not the answer. But, it's the old saying about, just double, what's the definition of insanity? And just doubling down even when it doesn't work. That's exactly what the left is doing.
Eric, in certain parts of the country, there's, guns, just the topic of guns is taboo. In the Northeast, many cities where I'm from, in New England, people think guns are for cops and crooks, and that's about it. What do you say to the city dwellers on the East Coast who think that there should be an assault rifle ban?
Well, first of all, I would say, look, a killer can use any instrument to incur a mass killing. I mean, he or she could use fertilizer in a truck, all right? I mean, that's like what the Oklahoma City bomber used to kill 168 people. Or it could just be a truck all by itself, like what a guy in France did to use, he ran over and murdered 86 people. So the whole idea of blaming a certain instrument is short-sighted because no law that bans a certain object is going to stop an evil, determined heart from killing. What's amazing, and this is one of the things that the anti-gun left does, is they only talk about certain uses of a firearm which fit their narrative when they're used in a bad way, but then they won't talk about firearms when they're actually used to stop mass shootings. The day after the Texas shooting, there was an attempted mass shooting at a West Virginia. It was a birthday/graduation party. And thankfully, there was a woman there with a concealed carry permit. She shot back, fatally wounded the guy. He died. That stopped the attack. Besides West Virginia, who else is talking about this? See, this is the very point where the media gins up opposition by only selectively talking about certain stories. And really, that's certainly is a disgrace, but that should be as much of the story as what the left-wing media, how they try to control the narrative.
Eric, to your point, in 2019, we saw what happened in Texas, where a madman was about to open fire in a church when a retired FBI agent pulled out his concealed weapon and killed the shooter, neutralizing him. Are there more types of these cases? You just mentioned one, and we just don't hear much about them.
Yes. And in fact, a lot of times where there has been a lot of killing, tragically, a lot of times they are brought to an end by a good guy with a gun. One of the guys who works with us, his name is Stephen Williford. It was also in a Texas church. Now, sadly, everyone at that church in Sutherland Springs did not have a gun on them that day except for the bad guy. But when Stephen Williford, who lived down the street, heard the shooting, he ran out of his house barefoot with his AR-15, called the guy out of the church. The guy came out, and Stephen mortally wounded him. I mean, the guy got in his car, drove off, but eventually took his own life because he was wounded so bad. So there are, in fact, the FBI cited that case and many other cases as examples where armed citizens use guns to stop attempted mass murders. I think it's really important to point out that in most cases, these killers will try to seek out a location where it's a gun-free zone. 81% of police agree that teachers and staff should be armed, and with good reason, because no school has ever had a mass shooting where there were armed teachers and staff. But tragically, that wasn't the case at the Texas school. Police were reportedly not quick to rush in, and this Texas school, didn't take part in the program that allows teachers to be armed. So it was a gun-free zone. And again, that's what killers often choose to target. And why would 94% of mass shooters target gun-free zones? Because they don't want bullets being fired back at them. That's why they don't target police stations or gun shows, because killers love gun control. And sadly, that's what enabled this killer in Texas.
Eric Pratt, thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thanks again, Steve.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.